In Pokemon, there exists three types of villains. There are characters that seek to take and destroy, willing to sacrifice anything or one to achieve that. Then there are villains who look to reshape the world for some greater good, misguided in their beliefs or just really stupid, looking at you, Captain Batteries, who believe that the ends justify their evil means. And finally, there exists Lusamine. Lusamine is Pokemon Generation 7's primary villain. For the purpose of this video though, this will be Lusamine in Sun and Moon. More on that later. Lusamine is many things. She's a mother of two, former wife, the president of a large-scale conservation effort, but most importantly, are absolutely f***ing bonkers. However, before we can properly delve into that lunacy, a little bit of legwork is required first. So let's quickly recap Lusamine's arc in Pokemon Sun and Moon, just so we're all familiar, okay? Years before Sun and Moon's story, Lusamine's father establishes Pokemon conservation effort, the Aether Foundation, now run by Lusamine and her husband Moan, helping to preserve and protect vulnerable Pokemon. Until one day, Moan just straight up gets fucking raptured, like a wormhole opens up and he's just like gone. Now, this naturally devastates Lusamine, who over the years develops a venomous obsession with these ultra wormholes, but especially an obsession with the Nihilego, creatures that dwell on the other side. An obsession so corrosive she begins to grow cold and cruel to anybody not supportive of her efforts, even if they are her own children. Both of which, after constant torment, straight up gap it out of there, with her daughter Lily stealing the strange Pokemon Cosmog, seemingly the only Pokemon with the ability to open wormholes at will. After some time passes, Lusamine does the only appropriate thing here, and arranges for Lily and Cosmog to be bloody kidnapped. Also that she can pretty much torture Cosmog until it almost dies and shits out a wormhole for her to enter.
Which she does.
Ending up in the ultra deep sea, where you find her pretty much in a manic fit, so obsessed with Nihilego that she does the second most appropriate thing, fusing with the supremely uncomfortable parasite jellyfish Splatoon thingamathing. All until you beat her ass so badly that she briefly snaps out of her obsession to connect with her daughter, before, being promptly rushed to another country for medical attention, because apparently interspecies mutation is classified by the CDC as a bad fucking idea. Haha, well, wasn't that life-changing? Now look, I'm well aware that's a little bit of a brief description when it comes to the entirety of Lusamine's arc in Sun and Moon, but to be honest, if you've made it this far in the video without thunder cutting your phone into the Pacific Ocean, then you're probably well aware of who she is at this point. So, let's talk about why she's the best. Which, to put simply, is because she is Pokemon's most human villain, allowing for her motivations to seem more believable and her actions more disturbing. But let me elaborate on that humanity part first, alright? In Pokemon Sun and Moon, Lusamine is unquestionably evil. She abuses her own children, runs a secret Pokemon experimentation lab, funds criminals, and puts a rat in the fucking freezer. But while she does all this, she doesn't do it because she's evil, and she knows that.
Or
for some moral endgame where she's the only one that can save the world. She does it out of pain and loss. Lusamine is lashing out violently in all directions, which is often how hurt manifests in actual real life. Grief and denial are the name of the game here. Before Lusamine's husband was violently ripped from her, she was described as fairly normal, caring, and even loving. But after that, well, all of that pain, that loss, well, it didn't have anywhere to go, causing Lusamine to latch onto the only thing that gave her any respite. In Lusamine's mind, the Nihilego were the one thing allowing her to cope with all of this tragedy and loss. Her delusions keep her going, but the cruel irony here is the Nihilego themselves are parasites from the Pokédex. It appeared in this world from an ultra wormhole, HEYO appears to be a parasite that lives by feeding off people and Pokémon. Lusamine is violently lashing out against anybody who gets in the way of her obsession, all while that obsession feeds off her, acting as a very stark physical metaphor for the parasitic relationship we can often have with our own traumas. And that's something that's so scary about Lusamine. We all know somebody who's acted or reacted out of spite, been delusional out of pain, or placed rats under minus 30 degrees, maybe not so often, or for very long, but we've all seen Lusamine in our life somewhere. Lusamine destroys everything around her, trying to desperately compensate for what she's lost. Which, compared to other Pokemon villain motivations such as, yesterday I'm going to blow up a volcano so everybody has a place to live, Maxie, you're an asshole. That right there is a remarkably human motivation, and that type of storytelling also allows for Lusamine to not dip into some of the other pitfalls that other Pokemon villains fall into. For instance, Lusamine is irrational, not stupid. Now, broadly speaking, Pokemon villains are dumb. They're often uber wealthy and well-connected individuals whose schemes fail either due to their own incompetence or some shithead 10-year-old wielding a fucking chimp. Chairman Rose, Archie and Maxie, Cyrus and Platinum. But Lusamine doesn't have that issue, because her motivations aren't dependent upon material success here, not the same way you'd imagine. She's just doing what she feels like, regardless of if it's a good idea or not. So when she does travel to the ultra deep sea, objectively, pretty poor move. She'll run out of food and water, but she doesn't give a shit. She's crazy, not stupid. And that's refreshing. What I also find refreshing is how relatively small scale Lusamine's plans are. The world really isn't in that much danger, and her plans don't affect that many people. Sure, when she does hydraulic press Cosmog, a bunch of wormholes open up all around Alola, but you don't really need her help with those. They'll get sorted out by Alola's Island Guardians. Realistically, nothing changes if you defeat her or not.
Which is also nice.
Because pretty much every other Pokemon game and villain is very main character centric. But here, you're really just a kid. You're not doing anything overly incredible, just helping out a couple of people, which leads to a far more grounded narrative. Enhancing that is, compared to most other villains, Lusamine actually has relations with the side characters of the story. That's another issue I find with Pokemon villains. Giovanni, Archer, Archie and Maxie, Cyrus Getsus, N, Lysandre, Uncle Grimacy, Dan Schneider, Volo, well, all interesting characters for their own reasons. They're mostly just concerned with the player character. With Lusamine though, you're not the main focus. Her relationship with Lily and Gladion is far more important, meaning instead of feeling like it's a battle between you and some great incredible evil, you're more so the catalyst for two siblings trying to save their mother. Once again, feeling significantly more grounded. Lusamine is grounded as a villain, while still being wholly unstable. Evil and dangerous, while still being understandable. Her actions holding great weight, without the world itself being in dire straits. And all of these factors combine leading to the single best villain experience in the entire series.
Which
is why it brings me zero pleasure to have to address the elephant in the room here. Why I haven't discussed Lusamine in Ultra Sun and Moon yet. Alright, yep, cool. Lusamine in Sun and Moon. Marvelous, spectacular, goated with the sauce, or whatever my uncle whispered to me before he croaked. It's really not that serious. Lusamine in Ultra Sun and Moon, however, in these set of games, instead of Lusamine simply wishing to live with her Nihilego, she instead wants to save the world. Yes, in Ultra Sun and Moon, Lusamine's arc is protecting the world from the invading Necrozma. Yes, this segment is rushed, it's fucking 12:30, bite me. Yeah, so remember that entire thing I just said about not having a savior complex? Well, ignore that. Lusamine here just wants to be the world's savior. Which I was originally going to write more about, but do I really have to spend 2 minutes telling you that that's disappointing and cringe and kinda pelts shit on half of my talking points? So I'll save you the time. While still traumatized and possessing an above average backstory, Lusamine here just isn't nearly as interesting and just ends up kind of feeling like a dick. Anyway, that's the end of the video. I look like an absolute troglodyte right now, so I apologize that you have to see this, but also, I'm really tired, okay? It's been about like 9 hours today doing this because apparently organizational skills are for absolute assholes. And I'm not an arsehole, I'm just cool. Look, I don't know what I'm talking about. Like, subscribe, feel free to contact my place of employment and tell them that I've been leaking people's personal information. I don't know, do what you want. Mark's Pizzeria.